In the Watford fan channel. My name is Jacob Culshaw, joined by Charlie Zazzera for a video, which it does feel like we haven't done a video in a long time, but with the transfer news ramping up, we've signed a player today, which we'll get into in a moment. We decided to do our 5 players that Watford should sign in this summer transfer window. It's been a bit of a busy summer, Charlie. First off, mate, how are you getting on? You okay? I'm sure we'll get into the summer Watford stuff, but just yourself, how you getting on, mate?
Yeah, good. Recharged the batteries, got away to Prague. Went out with loads of West Ham fans to watch them win, so that was a good feeling. One day, hopefully, Watford can go on a European tour. That'd be absolutely amazing. But yeah, recharge the batteries, and in my downtime, kind of being on a Y Scout, trying to play Football Manager, seeing what play for this video, really. So it's been good. But how have you been? I don't think we've chatted on this channel for ages. How you feel? I don't think we spoke about Valérien Ismaël yet, and how you feeling about Watford in general?
This is the thing. As I said, I was like, I throw Charlie, how are you getting on? And I'm like, well, there's the Watford stuff. It's been a bit of a busy summer, hasn't it? With the fans forum, with Gino, Scott, Ben Mang, Gioretta speaking to the 80 fans who were at London Colney just last week. And kudos to everyone who put that together, because I can imagine the work that went on behind the scenes to make that happen. I think it's only a positive that that's happened, if I'm honest, Charlie, because it's like, it kind of feels like we can look ahead a bit more now. A lot of the criticism, the frustration from my end was the fact we hadn't heard from him. I think it was 11 years since he last did an interview. He said on the day that he doesn't like doing press. Gino Pozzo, Scott's normally the man who's kind of pushed out there to do the media stuff. And I think for me, I'm going into next season. Obviously, we're yet to see all the signings, but the fact that Gino spoke to the fans, it might not be what everyone wants to hear. And it sounds like he's not really going to change his ways in terms of how he's been operating as a football club. But at least we are kind of all on the same page now about what to expect this season, if that makes sense. Whether you agree or disagree with how we've been operating, at least we kind of know now there's no sort of like grey area for what's happening at Watford. I feel going into this season. And I mean, we could do a whole separate video, I think, on that fans forum. But if I'm honest, mate, I'm feeling positive. I think it helps when you have a sign like Rhys Healey come in, which, although despite his injury last season, looks on the surface quite a clever signing if it comes through on a 2-year deal. But just on the fans forum on Valérien Ismaël, Charlie, what's your kind of feeling at the moment? Early days, obviously, but the first 3-4 days of pre-season now. And after the fans forum, what's the sort of feeling you're having at the moment?
Yeah, I echo your sentiment. Massive kudos to the guys at Do Not Scratch Your Eyes and the Rookery End and all the other guys who made it happen. Like you said, it happened. We got words out of Gino, so it's only a positive. So yeah, I think massive respect to that, a positive. And yeah, we've got clarity on the way things are going, and we've got stuff down on paper that can be held accountable. So I'm taking that as a massive positive. Kind of stay on the line, fresh start. We've done a couple of videos previously with Barnsley, West Brom fans about Val, so check those out if you haven't seen them. But I'm looking forward to a fresh start. We're going to talk about transfers in a bit, and I actually had an interesting phone call on Sunday night with our new assistant manager, Dean Whitehead, who I've worked with previously with the Coach's Voice. And when he joined, just same thing I did with Chris Wilder, congratulated him and just said, if you need anything, give me a call. And yeah, he was really positive, really excited about getting to work. Spoke about kind of what he thought went wrong. He asked what he thought went wrong last season. Spoke about a couple of the players, kind of different areas that they want to improve. So the energy that he was bringing in was really exciting. And yeah, let's just fresh start and let's get going.
Just on that, Charlie, there was the rumour that Valérien Ismaël wanted to bring in an ex-Watford player, and there was Robbo, Nigel Gibbs, Deeney was flying about. They've gone with Dean Whitehead and Omer Riza, who's been brought up from the academy. Just your thoughts on that, because I have to say I think that's a really positive move from the club to do that.
Yeah, really, really good move. What you said about bringing in a club legend, be interested if any of those talks materialise. I know you spoke about Robbo, it'd be great. I'd love Nigel Gibbs to come in. But yeah, Omer Riza, I think that's a really good move from the club. He's cut his teeth with the under-21s for a couple of years now. He knows the club well. I think he's done good things when you watch him in the FA Youth Cup. That was Charlie Daniels' team, but you see those players coming through like the Jack Greaves and Toby Adeyemu. So I think it's a good move from the club. It shows that you can work your way up and there is a pathway. He's going to have really good knowledge of all the young players, so that should help bring through some younger players. So, I like the start of that coaching team. It'd be nice if they dropped in another legend there with good coaching pedigree, but all positive signs so far.
For sure. And one rumour that was flying about, and GT officials just thrown it in the chat, was about Tom Cleverley potentially coming in as a coach for the under-21s. Now, from my perspective, I think that would be obviously if Clevs wasn't going to be retained as a player, I think it only makes sense to keep him as a coach if he's keen on that. I think there was something on the forums about someone bumped into Clevs, but it might be a bit of sort of whispers flying about. But anyway, you never know. That I'd definitely be a fan of that. But before we get on to today's video, which is about players that Watford should be signing, and we're not telling Ben Manga to do his job, it's just a few ideas flying about. Sam, in Paris at the moment, we miss you too, mate. We can't wait to have you back on. I think Sam's out there with Alex and Jack. The three amigos, the front three in Paris, the Paris Horns. But lads, Sam, we'll see you very soon. Right, we'll get on to today's video. Now, we put a tweet out, must be about a couple of weeks ago, Charlie, was it? About players that we think Watford should sign. So Charlie's got his 5. He's also got a lineup, and we're going to throw over some of the players that you've suggested as well. So Charlie's basically picked 5 players with a budget of around £10 million, which is pretty realistic. And when you look at some of the rumours that have been flying about, actually, Charlie, before we do go on to your 5 players, let's talk about the rumours. Jump the gun there. And it's reminding me only because you look at some of the rumours that are flying about and some of the fees connected with these players, and it's kind of got me thinking that we might have a little bit of cash to spend this summer potentially. But the first one was Rhys Healey today, 28 years old, left Toulouse last summer to join Watford. Striker, really good pedigree for Toulouse. I think his stats were very decent. It's like 1 in 2. How much have you seen of him? Have you seen any of him at all? I know he was at MK Dons before, a couple of British clubs, but it seems like when he was at Toulouse, that's kind of where he made his name.
Yeah, I think he started off obviously in the Welsh leagues, then Cardiff got him, then he went to MK Dons, and then he got his kind of move to Toulouse. He scored 39 goals in 77 games for them. He was top goal scorer in the French second tier when they got promoted. What we've seen with these rumours, which I think is really positive, is a profile of player, and it looks like we're recruiting for what I call valuable. And he kind of ticks those boxes. Really physical, good finisher. I think he said in the club's interview today, he might be, I think he's 5'11" or something like that, but he's feisty, so he's going to put himself about. Interesting is the 2-year contract. I don't know what you felt about that. He has had 2 big ACL injuries, including last season. When he came back, he did score in Liga. So I don't know what you make of it, but me, on the face of it, I think it's a really shrewd bit of business on a free. Obviously, he has got those injury concerns, but worth the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think worth the risk on a free. I thought it was going to be 3 years just because Adam Leventhal said it was going to be 3, but it's only 2 in the end. I mean, the thing is, his record speaks for itself. It's 39 goals in 77 games for Toulouse, which is pretty decent. And obviously, he was out pretty much the whole of last year as well. I think it's a clever move, really. I think we should probably bring in another striker, but you think of the profile that I haven't watched loads of him, but just from what I've seen, that sort of profile if you're playing Val's system as well with that one focal point, I think it could work quite well. Let's know what you think in the comment section. But moving on to one other player. So Rhys Healey's the first signing of this summer. By the way, the chant "Healey's on fire" has to be sung around the Vic this year, by the way, especially in the away end. Cho Gue-sung, and I only found out the other day, Charlie, he got voted the most handsome man in South Korea. All I'm going to say is when Miguel Layun joined with 1 million Instagram followers, it was one of the biggest days I remember for a long time. With his 2.5 million followers joining Watford. I mean, on a serious note, from a commercial point of view, could be absolutely massive for Watford. But from a footballing point of view, the rumoured fees around 5 million. Talks are ongoing. He did a couple of interviews saying, look, I'm in talks with the club. There's a few things that need to be sorted out. What do you reckon for this one? I know you put a tweet out saying you'd be a fan.
Yeah, this one really, really got me excited. Didn't know too much about him, but then when I saw the name, I recognised him from the World Cup. He came on for Korea, scored 2 goals against Ghana, One of them, he rose like a salmon at the back stick and just thumped it in with a header. He scored 21 goals in 39 games in the K-League since the start of their last season. He's so good out of possession. He's hurrying down. He's so dynamic. Like that high press, he would be perfect for it. Obviously, good finisher, scores goals, really good in the air. So on the footballing side, he's the one that's really, really got me excited. And we'll go through the 5 players I talked about, but he's better than all of them. So I know it's early, but it looks like Ben Manga's fishing in the right ponds. And then as we talk about the big commercial opportunity for the club, he's got almost double what the club's official Instagram account has got. I was reading an article about him, and he went from 40,000 followers before the World Cup to 1 million followers in like a day. Just the Asian fans, especially the female Asian population. He is a very, very handsome man. So it'd be massive for us commercially. I think it'd be quite sought after. So it'd be a big coup if we can pull it off. And the reported fees around, I've seen contrasting ones, but £3 to £5 million. So it shows there's more budget. We obviously heard in the meeting that financially we're looking okay. We'll be debt free apart from what we owe Gino at the end of next year. So it'd be a huge signing in my opinion.
Agreed. I think the profile, again, you look at, I said about Healey, but I think this one in particular that would be a huge statement of intent, I think, about what we can achieve this season. Played for South Korea 23 times. He's a mainstay really in that squad, as you mentioned, the 22 World Cup. But also he mentioned to Korea media about kind of his ambitions to move to Europe. He said, "Of course, I want to move to Europe. I need to speak to the club, and there are some issues we need to resolve. I think it is right to consider all clubs, not only the club I was linked with right now, and choose a team where I can play." So if he's going to be joining, he'd be looking to be the main man in that line. And I guess if you then have Healey in the mix, you then have the situation, we mentioned it on keep, sell or loan, about potentially what then happens with the likes of Bio, etc. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I think you look at Cho Gue-sung, and I think it'd be a really, really big move for Watford if we can pull that one off.
When I went to the Tottenham training ground the other week, went out to get some lunch, and there was just this massive crowd. I'm talking probably about 80 people at like the entrance.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is that? And it was just Korea fans and Son, where he was signing autographs for him. So nice. I just think it would show the pull that kind of market, and I think it'd be a massive opportunity. But I do think out of all the players that we're going to speak to, I think he's probably the most excited I'm about any of them. I think he ticks all the boxes, and he looks like a fantastic player.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other person who was linked, kind of on the same day actually, and released by The Athletic is Callum Styles, obviously on loan at Millwall last season. He's a Barnsley player, signed a new deal at Barnsley before he went out on loan to Millwall last year. Now, this is one that I think probably pricked more Watford fans' ears up, just because they've seen Callum Styles in the Championship. They saw him against Watford last season. A versatile player, a player that I think as soon as you think of Valérien Ismaël, you probably think he'd be a good fit. I'd be a fan of this one, Charlie. I don't know what the fee would be. There hasn't really been a fee thrown about, but Hungarian international, good age, 23 years old, has that Championship experience, versatile in a number of positions. I think it probably makes sense again for us to try and get this one over the line.
Yeah, really, I think it'd be really good signing. Like, obviously, you guys did a brilliant keep, loan or sell video, and it showed that we need to make a lot of signings. Like, just because of Valérien Ismaël's style of play, if I had the choice and we can get it over the line, I'd bring in Alex Mowat, Callum Styles. If we could get Mads Anderson or Helik and players like that who know and can hit the ground running. But Styles, out of those, like you said, really good age. He scores bangers. A lot of foul ball kind of direct play, drops out and edge of the area. So yeah, if we can get him over the line, he'd be a perfect signing. He can play left wing back. He can play in midfield. Really good out of possession. Sign him up. That'd be a quality signing as well.
I think that would be a good signing, wouldn't it? I'm just thinking in terms of something that just pops to my head about the fans forum, and I don't think this was said about Edwards. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was made it was reiterated on a number of occasions at the fans forum about how we were recruiting for Valor and Ismail's style of play. Now, I think that's a shift from what we've said before, because it's always been, I always looked at Watford under the Pozzos as sort of like they assemble the orchestra and then you can just change the conductor based on like whoever's in the orchestra. Whereas it feels like now they've got the conductor in early and they're actually shaping the orchestra to the manager, right? So
I'm not too sure about that. Like,
I'm not. This is sorry, mate. Go on, because it doesn't feel like. Do you buy that?
Not necessarily do I buy it, but I think, and I listened to the kind of from the Rookery. I think they said, and Gino kind of said about the philosophy that he wants to have, which I'd like. If I was there, I'd have kind of liked to ask, what is his philosophy then? And they kind of said the recruit. I don't know if they said we're recruiting for Val or if it's for that philosophy. One thing that I thought, again, a promising sign was when we were recruiting for Val and the list of head coaches that we've spoken to, and they all had that high energy kind of gate press style of football. So if that is the philosophy, then I think that's a good sign. So I don't know if it's recruiting for Val or that philosophy in particular, but I think it's a positive sign.
So Alex in the comment section has gone, we're recruiting more to Ismail's style as Gino wants us to play like his style. In my opinion, he's more keen to sign players to it, therefore. And I think that's probably a case of, look, Ben Manga said, this is the sort of style of play we should be going for. Here's a list of managers that play a style of play. We'll pick a manager from that, but we've got to then recruit for that. And to be fair, he did that at Frankfurt. So, look, I hope it's a weird one, because what I would say, just to caveat that, and I know we're going on a bit of a tangent here, is it's all well and good saying that, but then if we are changing a manager after 6 games, 7 games, and then you're left with Valor and Ismail's players, you've then got to bring in someone on that previous list who's playing the same brand of football, not Kike Flores, for example, who's playing something completely different. And then we've got, players out of position. Anyway, that's another story. So that Rhys Healey, Cho Gue-sung, Callum Styles. Now, this is the one that's, I think, the most surprising, in my opinion, Mr. Tom Ince, a man who I wouldn't say is viewed that favourably by Watford fans, just based on sort of like previous games. He always seems to pop up with a goal. He always seems to, just seems to really rile like a lot of Watford fans when he plays. He's got a relegation release clause at Reading. Obviously, they've dropped down to League One of £50,000. What do you, I just saw a little smile as soon as I mentioned his name. His dad doesn't come part of the package, by the way.
No, surely.
Charlie, Tom Ince.
Yeah, interesting one. I think when you're looking at the fee, 50 grand for a player in 2023 who's played in the Championship, got loads of experience, played Premier League football, scored 9 goals for Reading last season, won their player of the season. I was kind of questioning where he fits in the system for us. And then when I looked, I know Luke's in the comments, so he might have a more knowledgeable opinion, but he played, when I looked at his clips, he played a lot more centrally than I thought. So that interested me. But I think his best attribute really is his delivery, crossing, set pieces, corners. And if we're playing that style, we're recruiting for big centre forwards, then it could be shrewd. I know Norwich were looking at him as well. And there were some questions about that 3-year deal. He is 31. So the 3-year deal did seem a bit questionable. His wages aren't going to be particularly low. So I think the fee, 50k, again, it's a really, really low risk. Look at his experience. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm a bit on the fence with that one. But like we said, we need bodies. Like, there is going to be a lot of change and there's going to be a lot of signings. And for that fee, I'm just about okay with it, I think.
So you mentioned Lou Warnes there in the comment section. Good to see you, Lou. So with Ince and how Ismail rotates his forward players, it makes sense as A, he fits the style, and B, we have no backup for Esprit, and we don't want to burn him out after his World Cup like we did with Richarlison, which is a great point. And of course, the homegrown rule, which we do need to obviously fulfill.
Really good point about that rotation, because Val on half an hour apparently will make
60 minutes.
Subs. Yeah. So
60 minutes.
So you're going to see a lot of that. So we're going to need a lot of players fit and raring to go.
So this is the thing. I think this deal, it depends on how you view it, because when I initially saw the name, I was like, Tom Ince. But then when I actually started to think about it, I was like, well, if he's used as a rotation player, as a squad player in the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, you bring him on to change the game. If someone's, as you said, Charlie, that substitution of the front three where Ishmael changes the whole three, I think he's the sort of player in the Championship that is an impact substitute. Probably now. I know he's played the season at Reading. How much you read into that, I don't know, because I mean, you look at Kamara winning player of the season. It's like it's subjective.
Do we know
But
does anyone in the comment know if he was their captain? Does he bring that leadership?
let's have a look.
But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he's going to. I think he's a good body to have. We know that there's contract talks with Gosling, Cleverley, and Cathcart. If we don't give contracts to Gosling and Cleverley, there's two midfielders out the door. So
yeah, agreed.
I think I'm looking at more positives than negatives.
I think so. I think there definitely is pros and cons to the deal. I mean, in terms of what people are saying about the sort of cons with the 3-year deal, I do understand the reservations about that in the respect that we've been stuck with players previously on longer deals and they're getting to like 33, 34. And should they really be on those sort of contracts? The only thing I would caveat that with is we are getting a really good deal here on a 50 grand. So if that's one thing that you know, not every deal is going to be absolutely perfect in that respect. And if we're saying, as you say, Charlie, how much is he worth really? Like, you know, in the current market, and if you're saying, look, we'll give him we'll get him for 50 grand, but you've got to give him an extra year on his contract. I don't think that's the end of the world, really, when you think about sort of what we're, you know, the amount of money we are saving on that sort of deal. I think it also does reaffirm the sort of deals that Pozzo looks to do sometimes. I think it's the one. It kind of confirms to me Gino just loves dipping into that sort of reduced section of the seconds. And that is no disrespect to Tom Ince, but obviously the deal for 50 grand is like something you go to the reduced section at Tesco's and you're thinking, wow, just found myself a full sort of Chinese buffet for £1, you know?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So that's one of those. But in terms of Sam says, I think he was vice captain, player of the year there. Alex King, 3 years convinced him to join at least. It's worth it. Jack, though, says, and there's talk of him having a stinking attitude, but I don't really blame him with Reading season. And I've never heard of him having attitude problems beforehand. Jim says, Tom had a great season last year. It'd be great to get in. Nearly kept Reading up on his own. Depends on wages is a good point. And the GT official, we part of the squad for at least 2. With a 50k transfer, you can afford to pay off the 3rd year. And that's also true. You know, I don't think that's... Ian's gone centre aisle at Audi. Oh, bloody hell. So yeah, Tom Ince is the other player. But I look, me and Charlie would be open to that one. I think, as I say, it just depends how you view it. He's not going to be a first team player, and this is one of the first names in the team sheet, I don't think. But if you're looking at someone who could come off the bench and change the game and be an impact player, I think he's someone that could do well in the Championship anyway, as he showed last season. And the last man, Charlie, you put a question mark next to him. Cesare Casadei. Talk to me.
Yeah,
apologies, the pronunciation there was not great.
I won't do any better. Cesare Casadei, maybe. We got linked to him. Chelsea bought him last season. Really highly thought of Italian player. I think they bought him from Inter Milan. He's just won top goal scorer and player of the tournament at the Under-20s World Cup, I think. And he looks a really exciting prospect. He was on loan at Reading, so I don't know if Tom Ince can convince him. Really tall lad, powerful runner. I haven't seen too much, but the reaction I've seen is it'd be a really good signing. Reading fans thought he was good. He didn't play that as much as for Reading as I thought, but it's got to be it'd be a loan signing. I don't know if it would be another Henry Carouge, but you'd have thought of a pre-season, a new style. It wouldn't be. So it'd be interesting. I haven't seen any concrete reports on it, but an interesting one to keep an eye on.
To fly out there. Axel says in the comment section, Casadei looks extremely unlikely, in my opinion, now that he was so good in the World Cup, unfortunately. Someone says centre aisle at Audi is a little harsh. Very good. Very good. Peter, Cho Gue-sung has also been trapped by Rangers. I mean, that's the one where I think, as I said, I think that's a game changer, that signing. If you get that over the line, that's a big signing. Right, anyway, we've done enough of the rumours, but the one confirmed today is Rhys Healey, who did an interview with the club. Healey's on fire, coming to the Vic very, very soon. Now, Charlie's going to pick 5 players with a budget of around £10 million that Watford should sign this summer. Now, just as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is not Charlie Zazzera telling Ben Manga how to do his job. It's just a few suggestions that can fly about, and then we wanted to get your opinions about it. So, Charlie, the floor is yours. We're also, once Charlie's gone through his top 5 players, we've got an image of sort of the lineup, and then we'll get your guys' thoughts on what you make of it. So, Charlie, first player.
Yeah, so when I was doing this, I was kind of thinking, what are the priority positions? Just, Jacob, back to you quickly. What do you think are the priority positions that we need to be recruiting this window?
I mentioned on the keep, sell, and loan, but I actually think a keeper, potentially.
Okay.
I think a keeper, centre-back, centre-mid, maybe two centre-mids. I think we need a left winger. Just thinking of Val's 3-4-3. And maybe one more centre-back. Because I think actually out wide, when you look at our wing-back options, pretty solid. So in answer to your question, I think centre-back, centre-mid, left wing, and then potentially GK.
Yeah, I've gone for most of those, but I didn't go for any of the wide positions. I think Andrews has got the shirt for me at the moment. Ferreira's been really good. I think Ken Sema, this is another question for the comments, but I don't. Where do you think Ken Sema's best position is? Like, I've got him as a left wing back for Val Ball. I don't know what the comments think. So I haven't got any wingers. I've gone for a striker, a centre midfielder, 2 defenders, and a goalkeeper. So
striker as well. I think Healey signed. I just completely forgot that we probably need another one. So yeah, striker as well.
Okay. All right. So my first one, and I'm going for a striker. I want to see the goals. And like I said a bit earlier, I think Cho is probably better than this man. But the first player I want to put up is Sidney van Hooijdonk, who plays for Bologna. He was on loan at Heerenveen last season in the Dutch top-tier league, scored 19 goals for them. He's got that top-tier experience in Holland. He's only 23, so he's got that kind of sell-on potential. I think he's suited to Val Ball, really good in the air, 6'3", really neat interchange. He's got kind of that deceptive quick pace. I think he could be that potential fan's favourite. I look at what Millwall did with Zion Fleming, bringing him in from the Dutch league. He's kind of adapted to the Championship really well. So, yeah, I think he could be kind of that marquee signing that would really excite the fans. I think he could become a fan's favourite. I do think he'd be probably expensive considering he scored 16 goals in Holland last season. I think around maybe 4 million. I think it's probably either him or Cho. Well, obviously hypothetically, but we'd only spend that much money on one striker. And then to top it off, it'd just follow on from us following the trends of us signing a famous footballer's son. We've got Dennis Wise, Dennis Bergkamp, Pochettino, and obviously Pierre Van Hooijdonk. So that's my first name, Sidney Van Hooijdonk. What do you think?
Just do a dad's 11.
Yeah.
Mate, I think that'd be a really good sign. In terms of, again, you look at the profile of signing it would fit what Manga's looking for. The only question mark I have about that one is the fee, because I'd imagine there might be a couple of, I think, were Forest linked? I feel there was a Prem team who were looking at him. That's the only thing. I mean, fee, what would you reckon we're looking at for him in terms of, as you said, the top flight experience, the goals, 23?
I've got 4 million. I reckon it could be around there, but he scored 16 goals in the Eredivisie, so it might be more. But you're right. I just think, and then when the Cho rumours came up, I was like, that kind of. I'm glad that we're targeting a striker of that pedigree for that kind of fee, because we want to see goals. We want a player that we can fall in love with. I think Sidney could do that. And there's one player as well in the striker position who I wanted to highlight, and I wanted to shout out Sean on Twitter, or WFC Sean, who's really good. So give him a follow. He's on the pulse with Watford news, and he highlighted a player called Bénie Traoré that Helena Costa is following on Instagram. He's a 20-year-old from Sweden He was top goal scorer in the Swedish top league last season. I watched his clips. Incredible out of possession, very good 1v1s. Remind me of Igalo, really, the way he could beat people, skillful. Like I said, only 20. And I think if we get kind of Cho or another striker alongside Healey and supplement that with a kind of João Pedro Espria, a young emerging talent who we can bring in, give some game time, has got that sell-on fee that we want the model to be, I think that could be really exciting. So I just wanted to highlight that name, Bénie Traoré, and well done, Sean, for picking that up.
Wait, that's serious, mate. Oh my god, he's got to be going through the following. I feel like I need to get on Helen Acosta's Instagram. Just have a look at it. Just have a look at the following. It's probably like a little insight. To be fair, that would be a signing that I'd expect us to make under both Costa and Manga, I think. But okay, so that's the first name. Second one. So is that striker? Is that just? Can he play just in the striker role? Can he play across the front three?
That Sydney Van Hooijdonk can play off the left as well. So obviously we'll get to the potential. But if we've got Healey as the main and Sydney on the right, I think he is kind of that number 9 as well. But I think he's a bit more. He can play across them, unlike Healey, who I think is a bit more of a number 9. So, and I think Cho as well. He's probably even more versatile to play right attacker, left attacker. So if we can get any of those kind of names, though, pedigree and strikers, and a couple of players that we can fall in love with, a couple of more Vidras, a couple of more Igalos.
Yes, there
exactly what I want to see next season.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And let us know what you think of the shouts that Charlie's thrown out in the comment section below. Move it. Is any? So Glenn, in terms of that striker position, Glenn's gone Johnson, Clark Harris of Peterborough is the man we need. Not 100% sure myself, Glenn, about that one. Don't know if he'd fit the system. What do you reckon, Charlie? He's a name that's always flying about with Watford, but
he's always done well in League One. I think he done when Peterborough got promoted, he did okay. I think he's up for transfer this season. I'm sure Peterborough put him up for transfer, so they even want to cash in. So I think they're going to ask for a big fee from him, and I just think, knowing Watford, I think you can get more value elsewhere, really.
Yeah, agreed. There's a couple more comments. I'd sign him just for that name. Great name.
It's a lot for the shirts, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Oh my word, it would. Just going back onto some of the positions that people think. Axel says goalkeeper, centre back, left wing back, left back, right wing back, right back. Interesting. Joseph's gone left back, definitely. Peter's gone centre forward, right back, goalkeeper. So I think that's kind of. Let us know what other. If we miss any positions that you guys think we should be covering. So Charlie, number 2.
Number 2, a name that we might be a bit more familiar with. Cardiff City's Perry Ng. He's a defensive player. He was playing for Cardiff on the right of a back 3. He can play right wing back. He's played in centre midfield before. He's 27 now, so a good age. Really good leader. Championship experience. He's quick. One of the clips which kind of drew me to him, one of the main attributes was showing was just recovery runs. So like I think we're going to get a lot with that foul ball where our high line balls over the top and our defenders are going to need to chase back. And there was a couple of good clips of him running back and making last-ditch tackles. He's got amazing dead set-piece delivery, taking corners, crosses. He scored a couple of free kicks. He won Cardiff's Players' Player and Player of the Season last season. And the only other thing I've got on him is obviously Dean Whitehead, our new coach, worked with him last season. So I think he's someone that would cost around 2 million. He's only got 1 year on his contract as well, which would be a good position. But he's that kind of championship pedigree that I think would be really important, versatile, and I think it'd be a really, really important signing for us if we got him.
Yeah, lovely shout. That's something that we got to mention when we kind of shape the squad, is in terms of you do need players who just understand the championship. And I know it's a bit of a cliche. I know it's something that gets thrown about, but you just can't have players you can't have a squad of players who've never played in the championship before. I mean, you look at any squad that's gone up over the last 20 years, you look at the core group of players in every squad, and I think he's a player that would probably be a part of that. So, mate, I like that. That's a very good shout. And Jack's also just said, I'd also just sign him for that name. NG is the most amazing surname ever. John,
If you've got then Hooijdonk and then G in the back of the shirt,
G,
you probably
amazing,
even
isn't okay, so the first two. So we've got a centre back and then a attacker who can play through the middle and on the left. Number 3.
Number 3 is contradicting myself in terms of the championship, probably, but I wanted to look for a central midfielder. I wanted to pick something a bit different. Like I said in the video earlier, like if we can get Moet and those kind of guys that get them in, but I wanted to kind of think of different names. So this name I've picked out is, I don't want to butcher it too much, but Tim Breithaupt, who is a German player who plays for Culshaw, who are in Bundesliga 2. He has got a £3.5 million release clause. He's a 21 centre midfielder. He's like a destroyer, basically. He's like Hamza Chowdhury with a better passing range, and he reminds me a bit of Etienne Capoue, that kind of player. He's right-footed, so he'd balance out that midfield. If you've got Loser on like a left footer, or we've talked about Tom Ince, it'd be a right foot to balance out midfield. Amazing energy out of possession, tackling. His stats for kind of interceptions, recoveries are really high. But I see this as a kind of player who is a bit, again, like I said, a João Pedro Yasser Asprilla. If we can get him, he's kind of one of the most coveted players in the German second tier. Augsburg wanted to sign him, but can't afford his fee. I think he's got a really high ceiling, played for Germany's youth team. He's got a really good passing range. He kind of, like a Will Hughes, he gets the ball out of the back, he can turn and make things happen. So he's good in possession, he's good out of possession. He's in the last year of his contract, so I'm sure we might even be able to pay a bit less than that release clause of 3.5 million. But a player who might not know the championship, but I think is worth a punt and could be a really, really good player for us in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think all the three you mentioned so far, particularly the last, Van, oh God, I forgot his name. Sorry, my bad. Van Hooijdonk. That profile of signing again fits in with what Ben Mang is trying to do, and they're not like wild punts, but there might be a player that just needs a little bit of nurturing or a little bit of developing, and then they just go on to the next level. And I think that you saw that at Frankfurt with some of the players that he brought in. It's just like get them cheap in maybe a league where they've maybe not hit the heights yet, but they're starting to get them just before they start to peak. And then you're looking at, that, and also I think that actually, just thinking about that as well, I think that kind of fits in with what Gino used to do, but we kind of went away from that a little bit. So I think that's probably what we need to go back to. You look at some of the players we had from Udinese and Granada, but where they came from before, look, João's a perfect example. But anyway, we move. I'm going to start crying about it. Right. So
by the way, like his name was Tim Breithaupt. So I'm gonna, after this, I'll tweet a list of kind of these names that if you guys are interested, you can have a look at those. So he's a bit of a random, a bit left field, but someone who I think would be an exciting signing for us.
I like that. Peter says, I watched a lot of Barnsley under Valérien Ismaël, and they played a lot of skyball where they would move the ball forward and high and then play head tennis with their defence to score. ... Odd. Love the scouting. Peter's on Y Scout as we speak. Look, that's 3 done, Charlie. Moving on to number 4.
Yeah, number 4 is a goalkeeper. And I was a bit and ahhing whether to put up a goalkeeper just because of the players that we're going to have to bring in, and we have got Dan Batman. So, yeah, I was looking at a goalkeeper. I looked at a few different ones. I looked at Rotherham's keeper, Victor Johansson, who's had a good season in the Championship. When I was looking at these goalkeepers, the main stats I was looking at on Y Scout was something called exits. How do they get off the line? How do they clear it?
Which is something that people have criticised about Backman, right? That he doesn't come out for corners enough and he doesn't come out for crosses.
And like I was saying with NG, I think there's going to be a lot of long balls over the top with their strikers running up from our high line. So we're going to need a sweeper keeper. And then, I looked at Rotherham goalkeeper. He looked good. I looked at a player called Matthias Liss, who plays for the French side. He got relegated in Liga Taurus. I don't want to butcher that, but he's actually a Southampton player. And then there was just one player whose stats stood out. He was actually playing in League One last season on loan at Bolton, Manchester City's James Trafford. And to be fair, this name has been mentioned. I know Greg Wendover Horns mentioned him, so shout out. Thank you for sending your suggestions. And this kid is going to be an unbelievable goalkeeper. He's got the lot, to be fair. Shot stopping, really good with his feet. And when I spoke to Dean the other day, talking about playing style, he was like, don't be like, there's a big perception about we're just going to be hoof ball, but they are going to try and play it out the back. So we do need a goalkeeper good with their feet, really good off his line. I think the only thing that we need to improve from him is just because he's still really young, his physicality. But I think he was definitely one of the best goalkeepers in League One last season. He's away at the under-21s for England, who play their first game in the Euro 21s Championship tomorrow. Interested to see if he starts. He plays for Man City. We need to build a relationship with Man City because the talent they're producing is incredible. They're just producing like 20 to 30 million pound players left, right, and centre. So he'd be great. I honestly think he would be playing in the Premier League and potentially for England one day. So if we could get him on loan with an obligation to buy, I think he'd be a really good signing.
That's what I was going to say. In terms of the interest is going to be there for a player like him, obviously with his age, English, the ability that you mentioned. And I saw a bit of him at Bolton last season. I completely echo what Charlie said about his ability. It's top draw. The only thing is, in terms of the deal, so you'd think a loan is probably the most realistic with an option if we could.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a comment there, Burnley are bookmarking him. I've seen Burnley wanting just Vincent Kompany, links with City, their style of play, but he wouldn't be Burnley's number one. And obviously he wants to play football. He's also been on loan at Accrington, so he's got loads of minutes. But yeah, it'd have to be a loan. I don't even think we could have it. It might not even be an obligation to buy, just because if we do go up, he'll be so expensive. So you never know. But we did a couple of those deals with like Keenan Davis and Hamza Chowdhury last season. But if we could, everyone in the Championship's going to want this kid to play in goal for them next season, and I think he'd be a really, really good addition. He looks like he's going to be a top keeper.
Yeah, Lou Wans makes a great point. The City have taken a few of our academy players, so the least they could do is give us one of those. But Matthew makes a really interesting point in the comment section. Goalkeeper is an absolute priority for us. We need a goalkeeper who has temperament, who is calm and commanding. I generally think it's the most important signing this summer. Now, I listened into the Do Not Scratch Your Eyes Twitter Spaces the other day, and went over Horn Greg. Shout out to Greg, who is the man. To be fair, he threw a lot of shouts over for this. For this video, but he really made me laugh because he went up to Gioretta and had a chat with him about sort of like potential signings and stuff. And they were talking about Backman, and Gioretta was basically saying that he was basically very complimentary about Dan as he obviously would, but he feels, and the impression I was getting from, obviously this is kind of through the grapevine, just through what I've heard from Greg, and correct if I'm wrong, Greg, but he was quite positive about Dan, and he kind of mentioned how he can learn and develop this sort of thing about sort of the crosses, the temperament, as you mentioned, Matthew, as some of the key things that we might need in the next goalkeeper. Which almost is that a hint that he could be staying. We'll have to wait and see. But would you? I know you weren't on the keep, sell, or loan video, Charlie, and I'm throwing you over it. But would you be? Is a goalkeeper a priority in terms of would you move Dan on, or a Okoye, for example? Do we have to justify that £6 million fee at some point?
Yeah, I just looked at that goalkeeper department with Batman, Okoye, Hamer, and I was just thinking we need loads of different areas to recruit. Like the next player I've got is another defender. Obviously, we signed Healey, but I think goalkeeper is a really in the modern game. It's such an important part, and like if we are going to be playing out the back, like Dean said the other day, then we're going to need someone comfortable with their feet. And yeah, I think look what Pep Guardiola did with Joe Hart, who was a City legend all those years ago. And then you can look at the other side of Manchester, kind of David De Gea with Man United. It's a massively important role. And yeah, I think if we've got the budget and we use our budget effectively and target someone who's an upgrade, because there's no point bringing someone who's same as or worse than Dan Batman. They have to be a significant upgrade. Then yeah, we should recruit for that.
Yeah, agreed. Anthony in the comment section, perhaps Batman is better suited to the new style of play, i.e. more direct. But as Charlie mentioned, Anthony, I think that's a great point. But in terms of what Dean was saying on the phone to Charlie, that they aren't just going to just start launching it for no apparent reason. They are going to look to play when they can. Peter says Alex Chamberlain and Gomez have been our best goalkeepers for a while. I think we haven't really, there's no disrespect to Dan, but I think the levels we got with Gomez at both Championship and Premier League level was quite rare. And actually, if you look at the Pozzo era, probably pound for pound and on a free, one of the best signings.
Gomez in the Championship is unbelievable.
Like, that was a joke, to be honest. And then, to be fair, at the time, I think there was a few reservations from some people, especially after what happened at Spurs. But anyway, so that's number 4.
Four.
Number 4. So moving on, the final.
Last one, number 5. And a few people have mentioned this player before. And again, I'll tweet out kind of my list of targets. There's quite a few names, but this guy stood out for me. Heading over to the USA, Auston Trusty. He was
nice.
an Arsenal player, a left-footed defender. I think
Birmingham fans loved him.
Yeah, Birmingham fans loved it. I think we can personally upgrade on Wesley Hoyt. I think we can get a better player. I think having that balance with a left-footed centre half, really good on the ball, really good aerially, quick. I think I'm not sure how old he is, but
he's 24.
24, but he seemed quite a big leader for Birmingham last season. He's got that championship experience. No defender in the championship, blocked more shots, crosses, and passes than Auston Trusty last season. And he did go on Troy Deeney's podcast recently. So if there's any link, if Deeney can shout us out for that, that'd be good. And this one would be a really good loan obligation to buy. If we do get promoted, can we sign you for 10, 15 million, something like that? But really good with the ball at his feet, good in the air, 24, good age, championship experience. I do think alongside Porteous, I've named Perry and G. I think Matty Pollock. Did you guys bin Matty Pollock in the keep loan or sell?
So all I said was if I was Matty, I'd move on just because he was loved at Aberdeen so much, and they're playing European football next year, and he'd probably start. Yeah. The only thing I would say about Matty is the only thing I worry about him in this system is the high line.
I think he's good. Yeah, he played a lot right side of the back four for Aberdeen last season. I just think defensively we could do with a couple of. I think Porteous has done amazing for Scotland recently. They've won their last 4 games since he's been playing. But I do think we need some calm heads. I do think we need 2 more centre halves again, especially if Craig Cathcart doesn't get that contract. So that's my last one. American international Auston Trusty.
Mate, lovely shouts. Let us know what you think of Charlie's 5 shouts. As I said, he'll post it on his socials at Cesare Zazzera, but also on WD18, so you can have a look at the full list. Pollock's an interesting one. Just going back onto that, Anthony says, anyone heard anything about a Kong situation? We need leaders, but would that and other centre-back signings be at the cost of Pollock, i.e. Wilmot 2.0? I think if I'm correct, Charlie, a Kong, it's an option to buy. I don't think it was obligation. I think he was when he went to
Italy.
Italy. Yeah, sorry. I've done a Paul Merson there. But yeah, no, it was an option. So, I mean, the interview he did with Adam Leventhal at the time suggested that he wouldn't be coming back.
They stayed up as well. They stayed up, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, did you see his goal against Udinese?
I didn't see it, but I saw it at the scenes and he went mad.
The celebrations, you got to respect it. He had to put, I think he put a statement out afterwards saying, I not overdid, but as in, I think he was getting accused of overdoing the celebrations. But he was like, no, I've only got respect for Udinese, etc. In the moment, it's a winner. You can't blame him. But someone who has thrown out another suggestion, GT official, probably well out of our price range, as they've already rejected 6 million from Palace, but Ronnie Edwards, good ball playing centre back. Again, someone if you could, you'd be all over it.
He's been brilliant for Peterborough the last couple of years for a player so young. Already a leader. I've seen Southampton linked with him, I think. But yeah, he's going to be a big old fee, and I don't think we could afford him. I think he could maybe look higher, even dare I say it, them lot up the road or a lower Premier League team. But Southampton, Leicester. I just think he'd be a bit too expensive, but really good player.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the Kong, before we just move on, would you have him back at Salernitana last season? I've nailed the pronunciation now.
I don't know how much he would suit Valball, if I'm honest. yeah, I'm not too sure. I think if he had a good time there, we got a decent fee for him last time. He has got that leadership qualities that we need, and I was factoring that in when I was looking at my players, like what leaders can we bring in this team, because it's vital. And was that discussed in the forum? I think it might have been maybe leadership and the need for getting the right characteristics.
I think it was mentioned about how they've recognised they need a captain.
Yeah,
We've been missing that.
Yeah, so Troost, I'd be happy to have him back, but I'm not sure how much he'd fit the system, really.
Yeah, sure. Okay, moving on. So these are some of the. So Charlie's mentioned his 5 players that he picked out. The budget of around £10 million that he thinks Watford should sign this summer. Now, you guys threw in your suggestions on Twitter. If you have Twitter at WDA Team Fans, replied to our tweet with some players, and these are the 4 players that kind of stood out. So we've got a goalkeeper, a defender, midfield, and a striker. So we've got Jack Stevens, Oxford goalkeeper. We've got Jack O'Connell, obviously defender at Sheffield United. I'm sure you guys recognise that name, obviously, with his experience in both the Prem and the Championship. Rodrigo Zalazer at Schalke, midfielder. And then up front, Jerry Yates, a Blackpool striker. And this is Jerry Yates particularly has been on a lot of clubs' radars from what I've been reading. I mean, I think commentary were looking at him, a player that I guess walks into quite a few Championship squads. But from the suggestions, great suggestions, by the way, from people who have thrown them in. But was there one in particular, Charlie, that stands out for you from those 4?
Yeah, for me, and it was a Lou Orn shout. And when I was looking at kind of Germany, it was a Rodrigo Salazar player, midfielder, 2.5 million. Schalke got relegated, so I don't know if he's looking for a move. Luke said he was kind of hardworking, a creator, really good delivery, good shooting range. He seems a bit more attacking than my suggestion of Breithaupt, and he seems a bit older and someone who can make an impact, kind of dynamic midfielder. He's someone who I think would be really good, and that creative signing that we'd need, and for a small fee could be a winner. Jerry Yates, I know my commentary mate suggested they're going to go for him. Jack O'Connell would be good on the leadership front. Obviously, he's a bit older, and I don't know how much he'd suit foul ball. And I don't know too much about Jack Stevens. I think he's 25, so I don't know too much about how good he is, but we shall see.
Also signed by Manga at Frankfurt, Zalazai. So, I mean, mate, I'd be keen. This is the lineup, by the way. So Charlie mentioned his 5 players. We mentioned your 4 players that have kind of been flying about on Twitter. But just from the names that Charlie mentions, we're just getting the graphic up here. You guys can see that. So this will be the lineup that Charlie's potentially thinking. It's only a potential with his 5 players. So we've got James Trafford in goal, Ng, Porteous, Trusty as a back 3. This is the formation, obviously, Val is going to be looking to play from what we know. Ryan Andrews at right back, which is right wing back, which is an interesting one. Obviously, Ferreira's still in the mix there. Midfield partnership of Loser and pronunciation, Charlie, I'll leave it to you.
Breithaupt, Tim Breithaupt.
Breithaupt. With Ken Semmer at left wing back.
Where do you think Ken Semmer's best position is?
I think in that position, if I'm honest. I think the great thing about Ken is good going forward, but I think also you've got to remember what he offers going back. And I think at left wing, it doesn't give him the opportunity to do that. I think he's best when he's overlapping someone rather than being the person overlapped, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How many assists did he get in that promotion season when he was kind of going on, cutting it back?
And you've got to remember, there was reservations in terms of, obviously, we had Purvis Estupinian in pre-season. Everyone was like, he's going to be the left wing back under Ivic. And then Sema came in and did such a great job, and it just fitted he's just such a great player to have in the squad because he can play anywhere on that left side. Luan says, Charlie, in that team, Van Hooijdonk and then Healey with the Spirit on the right. I really like the idea.
My dream team is to have Cho instead of Van Hooijdonk. If we
not Healey.
No, Healey and Cho.
Right.
That'd be the dream.
And so if you had to pick a captain from this team, who are we going for?
Watching Ryan Porteous. Yeah, I've seen a comment just there about he came back, didn't he? Porteous, he skipped his break from international, was coming back straight into Watford for pre-season. He hasn't been at the club long, but I'm looking at that team. Who else do you think could be captain? Do you see Sema as a captain? I don't
No,
see Loser a captain. I know he's hypothetical. Perry NG, even Trusty, but it's hard to pick. But Porteous would be my front runner on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Funnily enough, obviously with Porto on international duty for Scotland, I know he gave away a penalty against Haaland, but it was a soft penalty, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It was a soft pen. He hasn't conceded a goal from open play, that's all I'm going to say. I actually got a message from someone I know who is a Scotland fan, and he said, so it turns out all you need to stop Big Haaland is for Ryan Porteous to pocket him. Absolutely love it. Lou on says, I think they mentioned Porto is captain material at the forum. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. Look, I think the players you've got there at the moment, Porto's the obvious choice for me. I mean, as you say, I think we've been looking for a captain for quite a while, to be fair, Charlie. So
I actually, when I was looking at midfielders instead of Breithaupt, I was looking at a player that Schalke have actually just signed, who used to play for Paderborn, I think, Ron Schallenborg or something like that. He was a bit more older than Breithaupt. He was 24. Really, he was their captain at that young age, but Schalke have just bought him. But yeah, it's so hard to buy a captain, isn't it? So it'd be interesting if we go in for Alex Mowat. He was captain for them for Val at Barnsley.
Mowat's not. I quite like the Mowat shout. I think he's always followed Ishmael, hasn't he, as well?
Especially if Loser goes.
Well, this is the thing. Jim just goes, Loser will be massive for us this season. It's just whether we keep him. You know, I think there'll be a couple of Premier teams slipping around. I remember Wolves, Brighton. There was another team interested, but even abroad, maybe back in Liga, and I could see it myself. I don't, I mentioned it on the Keep Sell Alone video, but I generally don't think we can underplay how much of a mental effect that injury would have had on him just before the World Cup. I mean, he was set on going. Can you imagine that representing, and then seeing Morocco do that well as well? And he would have started, which is, I mean, I think people forget that in terms of the effect that can have on a player anyway. But yeah, last couple of comments. Anthony mentions crucially a captain who's in the starting 11, and sorry, Clevs, and that's an absolutely fair point. You know, Clevs isn't going to be the first name on the team sheet, but we do need someone who's going to come in and just be that mainstay. Alex, okay, so Porto at the fans forum is mentioned as a lead and not captain, which almost suggests that if someone else isn't brought in, you'd imagine Porto is going to be the captain next season. And he went on to say, I think they said they have signed players with leaders, Luke, but the phrase captain wasn't spiffy. You mentioned for what I remember having a glass of wine in Paris watching. I mean, that is just almost the perfect way to wrap it up, by the way. Charlie, what a pleasure. I mean, the sort of research put into that was phenomenal, mate. Absolutely top stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a couple of things to throw onto your radar. Fixtures out tomorrow. We'll have all the social content on WD18 if you want to follow that sort of opening it. We are going to play everyone twice, but if you want to know our opening game, our final game, some key periods in the season, make sure you check out our socials. Sam's got an interview with Troy Deeney on mental health, which will be coming out very shortly. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. Make sure you turn on your notifications on socials, but also on the channel. It really does help us out. And subscribe. Obviously, we're nearing 7,000 followers. Subscribers rather on YouTube, which is great. And yeah, that'd be absolutely fantastic if you could do that. And the last one is obviously with today, we talked about 5 players Watford should sign, but there is going to be a lot of transfer content coming up. Rhys Healey is the first signing of the summer. Healey's on fire.
If we get Cho in, we are doing a special video just for him.
Look, if Cho signs, we're doing a special video. There's absolutely no doubt. George Parker's thrown out a late curveball. Tom Ince, captain material.
Interesting.
We'll leave you that bombshell. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Really do appreciate it. Surin, lovely to see you, mate. GT official, top comments as always. Ricky, lovely point just to wrap up. Would be nice to have a leadership group, much like City do. And when you throw it back to that Cisco season, you had the likes of Akong, you had the likes of Troy, you had the likes of Clevs, Cathcart. There was a group there. At the minute, you feel there's a couple. So we'll have to wait and see. Tony, thank you very much. Take care of yourselves, guys. Have a lovely rest of your summer. We'll see you very soon for some more transfer content, I'm sure. And yeah, take care. Nice one. Up the Hornets.